Hey guys, how's it going? Pitch Canker here. This is my very first real YouTube video, and I'm gonna be making it today on how I made my Dark Tarot, the Troubled Tarot. I thought it'd be a cool video because I get a lot of questions on it. A lot of people try to figure out how to make tarot decks themselves, and personally, I had a really hard time finding quality information online on how to just make a deck from start to finish. Not only just make it, but distribute it and order it from the vendor, so on and so forth. So I thought it'd be really cool to just go over it as a first piece of content. So yeah, let's do this. All right, so the first thing I did, and the first thing I do with any of these kind of big projects, is I set goals. Goals are really good because on some level they hold you accountable and they kind of give you a template. You don't get bored as easily, you don't get distracted as easily. If you have a list of goals, you've written it down, you've willed it into existence, you know what I'm saying? Write down your goals. I personally had 5 big goals for this project. First goal was to obviously make the entire deck, all 78 cards, the backs and the box. This was going to be a huge undertaking. It took me about 200 to 300 hours altogether, if not more, just over the course of a couple of months. But it was really critical that I just write this down. I figure out how much work I actually had ahead of me. My second goal or thing to keep in mind was just to make the deck unique. I really wanted to make sure the deck had its own quality. I personally restricted myself to just 3 colors. I do that with a lot of my work. It's just red, black, and white. So that was a pretty easy goal to stand by. Now, my third goal was to run some really solid promotional material. I wanted to make sure that I had an audience that was already interested before the deck was on sale. So for about 2 months before I actually released the deck, I started teasing it on all my different social media platforms. I posted daily. I made sure people were aware what was going on, so they weren't just all of a sudden blindsided by this deck that was in my shop. My fourth goal was to find a reliable vendor. Now, this was a huge one for me, just across my business, but it's really hard to find people who do things right. You need to make sure you pay someone who's actually good at what they're doing. I've been bamboozled plenty of times by different vendors who promise different things. So it was really critical to me that before I even sold this deck, I had some samples of the deck. I knew what it was going to look like. I knew what quality I was going to get, so I could know what to charge, and I could charge a fair price for what I was going to be selling. My final goal was to set up a pre-sale event in my shop, and this was important to me because I didn't want to buy 10,000 decks up front. I didn't even want to buy 1,000. I really didn't know how many people were going to buy this. So after finding the vendor, I just wanted to see what their minimums were, make sure I had enough money for that, and then just set it up in my shop. I could do a whole video on how the pre-sale model is great for artists, but we'll save that for another day. So there you go. 5 goals for this project. Not unreasonable, not crazy, but something to stand by and have kind of a guide as I go along. And again, I can't stress enough how helpful this is as you go through any project like this as a creator. Just having these kind of things laid out is going to save you so much time and energy in the future. So, with that, let's get into the fun part. Let's show you how I made the deck. Now that I've set some guidelines for myself, it's time to draw. And I use Procreate and I use an iPad Pro and an Apple Pencil. But honestly, I was using pen and ink for years. I don't think you need crazy tools to get the job done. This is just what I'm using. So I decided to start strong and I made the major arcana first. They were the ones I knew the best and I knew I'd have the most fun with them. It would help me break into this subject a little bit easier. So I'm going to just show a couple of clips of what I was drawing at this time. And to be honest, this was the most fun I had on the project. Redesigning these original archetypes was so much fun. Going into the Fool and seeing that, the original I think is a man with a little dog falling off a cliff. And I wanted my Fool to be a little bit different. I wanted his head to be popping off. I wanted him to seem careless and thoughtless. And I took this kind of methodology with me the whole way through the project. And I really think it served me well. And so I continued with this, and I kind of just made each one more terrifying than the last. I made some of them soft and sweet. I made other ones just absolutely ridiculous, like this devil I drew. He really took the cake, I think, as one of the more frightening pieces in the deck. But at the end of the day, my goal was just to get all of these done. I wanted to get each one of these, and I wanted to change them from what they were originally and kind of evolve them into my own concept. So I was also researching a lot as I did these pieces, and I was learning a lot about tarot cards and their meanings and how they've been deciphered over the years. And to be honest, those descriptions influenced me more than previous pieces of artwork. These ended up becoming my interpretations of hundreds of years of people creating tarot. I'm like, this is my devil, this is my empress, this is my version of judgment, and that's a powerful thing, and that's what I wanted for all of these major arcana, and I think I achieved it by the end of the project. So there are 56 minor arcana, and I wanted to do something different for them. And so during my research, I had found out in the Middle Ages, a lot of decks were actually for playing cards. A lot of tarot were actually playing card decks, and what we know today as a French suited deck is actually basically a derivative of the original tarot cards. And so what I wanted to do for my deck was kind of recreate this feeling of minor cards being closer to pip cards, and this approach of taking them a little less seriously let me really flesh out the designs and make them beautiful. I wanted these to be special. I wanted them to be unique. I think the archetypes in the major arcana were really important, but for these, I wanted to let my creativity kind of run wild and go crazy. As you can see on this one, this is my Nine of Pentacles, and I feel like I've never seen a Nine of Pentacles like this. I wanted all these faces to really pop out. I wanted people to appreciate that, instead of just using like circles with stars, I made all my pentacles faces. And I think through and through, that was really important for me to achieve. So the minor arcana also include pages, queens, and kings for each of the suits, which are swords, wands, cups, and pentacles. So this was another really enjoyable stretch of the project. I really enjoyed like kind of making these like queens and kings and like jacks basically their own thing. And at first I was gonna go really simple, and I decided, well, hey, why not just give them their own character each? Like this queen in particular, like holds a giant butcher knife instead of a sword, which I thought was kind of cool. And as you're gonna see in a second, I end up going with the wands next, and I say, well, instead of just doing a guy holding a wand, why don't I make him like a tree stump? Like, you know what I mean? Like the thing that actually probably produced the sticks and the wands or whatever. And I did this with all of them going forward. And I think just something to keep in mind with this is that, there were no limits on this part of the project. There was nothing set in my mind. So I was able to work on this really freely. And an unintended side effect of this was that I ended up making a story for my minor arcana. I made each card kind of progress into the next part of it. And I made each one kind of fill in this strange world that I was building as I was going. And I think that tied in really nicely because tarot is kind of about interpreting the events in your own life, right? Through some art, through divination, through these kind of ideas that are a little more abstract. And so I wanted to give my own abstract feel to this process. I wanted to give my story and incorporate my own ideas into my tarot. And I feel like the Minor Arcana was where I was really able to express that. And I think that is a good lesson to anybody struggling with creativity is just to really put yourself out there, like give into those really wild ideas because you never know what's going to hit it off and what's going to fail, but you just need to do it. Just put it out there and try something different and don't be constricted. So there's just some of the deck. I'm not going to show you all 78 cards time lapse because I feel like that is a lot of video time and it's also a little psychotic to voice over all that. But if you're into it, let me know and maybe I can make another video in the future. Until then, let's go over how I did the box. So right here is my very first tarot deck. It's about a year old, maybe 2 years at this point even, honestly. And I just want to show you how I formatted this, how I designed everything, how I came up with a little blurb on the back, and how I just kind of made this ready for retail. I think it's just really important to show off this part of the process because I've never seen anyone else really make the box for a deck. So let's do it. So let's start with the front of the box. I think this is a really important part because it kind of sets the theme for the entire rest of the deck box. And as you can see, it's just a hand. I kind of have that mystical quality going on. It's got making a kind of like a cult symbol. And then I have these 3 cards that kind of represent some of the other suits in the deck. And I actually decided to change the hand instead of being kind of like a stump. I have it coming out of a little tarot box. I add some details to the frame and boom, a really cute little front. Now for the rest of the box, I decided to just actually build everything off of the template. I added the name of the deck to the sides of the box, so if someone had it on a shelf, they could see it. I put 78 in Roman numerals on the top, and then on the bottom, a terrible fate, just kind of like a cool quote. And on the very back, I just do a whole little blurb about the deck and myself. So that is how I formatted my deck box. 2 things to keep in mind. One, I did use the specific company I worked with template. I wouldn't just go with some willy-nilly template you find online. They're going to want a specific one, whoever you work with. So just make sure you communicate that with whoever your partner is. And then second, I do get all my decks shrink wrapped. They don't come in looking that beat up like the one I showed you previously. I think it's really important to get them shrink wrapped because, if you're going to be shipping them out, I've seen the way USPS and UPS handles things and they absolutely overhand throw the packages into the bins and they just make sure you package these properly because, you want to make sure your customer's getting the deck the way it was intended to be. And so with that, let's go into the backs of the cards, which is another really fun part of the project. Now, right when I started this deck, I knew I wanted the back of the cards to be really intricate. I find intricate card backings really cool and fun to look at, and I mean, you're going to be staring at the back of these cards a lot, so I figured you might as well put a lot of time and effort into this final back design. So what I did was I kind of drew a quarter of this like castle architecture and I repeated it, and it kind of gave me this symmetrical, like fantastical architecture. And from there, I started to kind of fill everything in. I just wanted to draw the eye around the piece. I wanted to add like some faces, some clouds, like really make it unique and fun to look at because at the end of the day, the fronts were really simple. And I think having this really intricate background was not only a good contrast, but it also gave you something to like ponder on in the background. You know, when I was younger, I played a lot of like Yu-Gi-Oh and things like that. And I loved the back of the cards because I could just stare at them. It had almost like this void-like quality. And I wanted to continue that over into my own deck of cards. Now, this background was kind of a risk for me because I'm not super used to doing intricate designs like this. I actually don't do a lot of architecture at all, but I did have a vision for this and I did want to do this, so I kind of went for it. You know, something I heard once that really stuck with me, and I really can't remember who said it right now, is that people who are fashionable, you know, kind of follow the trend with what looks good. People who are stylish take risks. So I always try and take risks with my projects. Even if it might not come out great, I can always scrap it. But I was very lucky this time. I think the final result of this was just super cool and fun and interesting to look at. So there it is, the back of my tarot cards. So there it is, super easy. You know, I condensed that down to about 5 minutes, but that was about 2 to 3 months of work after doing all those pieces. And you know, it was a very satisfying project. But then I decided, you know, what's after that? Well, I looked at my list of goals, and what do we have? We have promotion. So now it's time to actually start releasing the pieces to the public. And you know, luckily I have a big following. But if you don't, this is some good advice too. I started posting every day, really consistently. I started with the first, the Fool, and then I went all the way to the end, which was the World. That's 28 days worth of content. And you know, I was making sure I hit all the hashtags. I was making sure I was responding to people's messages and comments and just trying to like follow up and really talk this deck up and really spread it out there on my various platforms. You know, one of the platforms I had the most success on was TikTok. I mean, it's really the meta right now is to post on TikTok and do some videos there. So, you know, that was huge for me. I mean, I also did really well on Instagram, but you know, the more platforms you get on and the more you spread yourself out, you may find that, you know, you might not have a lot of success on somewhere like Instagram or Facebook, but you might blow up on Twitter or, you know, the TikTok or wherever you might be posting. So, a piece of advice for me would be, you know, spread your content out. You know, make good high quality content and then spread it out. Another weird factoid that I'm gonna like tack onto that is that I heard once that people need to see something like 20 times before they're actually like interested in buying it. So think of it like every time you post something, you may think it is annoying or like too much or like too frequently, but you're really just solidifying someone seeing it more than once and really like getting in their head with it. That's why it's so critical to like really, I wouldn't say spam social media, but make sure you're really consistent on it and your voice is heard consistently. Now, before I end this segment, I did want to show off the power of the short format video because this is like one of my first TikToks and it got like 175,000 likes, which is, I do have a built in audience, but that's insane. That's so much. And so I would tell any small creator to just like put your stuff on TikTok, put it on Reels because you never know what's going to blow up. It's only going to be good for you. Now, one of the most important things was finding a vendor. I did this kind of at the same time I was promoting. I was really looking for somebody who could do my deck justice, who could follow the guidelines I set. And just like how we set up goals earlier in the video, it was really important for me that I had a list of things that I could go to my vendor with. You know, I wanted a certain card stock, I wanted a certain like finish, like, you know, matte or glossy or whatever. I wanted the deck to be a certain way and open a certain way. These are all things to take into account. I wanted someone who could shrink wrap it. Like, these are all things that I knew going in. And just knowing what I wanted, like exactly how I wanted it, was so helpful to the process. And so I would suggest if you're going to order something from any vendor or just search for a vendor yourself, just make a list of all the things that you want. So you can go in and ask them with a clear mind exactly what you would need from them. And then you can kind of compare and contrast from there and see what pricing works for you for your project. All right, so we're on to the final step. We got everything all set up. The deck looks great. All 78 cards look good. They're formatted. They're sent to the vendor who we have locked in, who's ready to print whenever we have the decks ready for order. We have a great social media campaign. And now the final thing is just to set up the shop so it's a pre-sale. And I'm just going to walk you through that and what that looks like on my shop. So yeah, let's get into it. All right, so here's my shop. It's looking good. I do use Shopify. I think it's the best platform that you can use for a small shop. It's really great, super intuitive. As you can see here, I have a couple of mock-ups. I prefer mock-ups to actually taking photographs because I'm not really a photographer. It's very close to what the original work looks like, so I'm very happy with it. I would suggest spending a little bit extra on good mock-ups if you do use mock-ups. And over here you can see that I have this little description of my deck, a standard blurb as to what it includes. And then underneath in bold, I make sure to let everyone know that this item is a pre-order and it takes approximately 1 to 2 months to ship. And under here, I just put a secondary disclaimer, just letting people know that international orders will take longer and that these pictures are mock-ups. Doing this gives me and my customers a peace of mind because at the end of the day, transparency is really important. And when someone's supporting you, you want to let them know what they're getting themselves into. And I think that's really important. And that's really it. From that point on, it just came to like launching the project, like actually telling everybody about it, having a specific day where it was going to be released. And I had a really huge reception to it. The deck went kind of viral in my own circle in like the dark art sphere. And I was really lucky to have so many people grab a copy, and everything worked out in the end. Personally, something I did was I like to give a little thank you card with every order, and I also do a little pack of like 5 vinyl stickers, and that's just something, something a little extra. I think it's always good to throw in some extras because, at the end of the day, people are supporting you, and like, give them something cool. When I was a kid, I used to subscribe to the Goosebumps fan box. You know what I mean? When I was a kid, and it would come with like, not only like a book, but like, some cool merch, like a keychain and some stickers. And I think it's kind of cool to do that for people because when you get a package in the mail, it's a special thing. I love getting mail, and it's great to be able to give that back to people. And I'm realizing as I go through the end of this video that I haven't even shown you guys the final deck. This is it. This is the Troubled Tarot. These are all the major arcana. I mean, the quality came out really great. I'm really happy with how this deck looks. If you noticed, every 3 cards, I actually changed the background color, which helped with the consistency of the major arcana. And then for the minor arcana, I actually made sure that each suit was either red or black in the background. And this just added a sense of like unity to the whole deck. And going back to what I said earlier, the unity was important to me because it helps tell a story. It helps make it feel like a cursed deck of tarot cards, which ultimately I was going for. In my mind, people were paying for something really downright evil and different, and I think I delivered with this deck. Finally, if you want to check out my deck, I do have it in my shop right now for pre-order. I think it's really awesome. It's something I'm really proud of. We sold hundreds of them. And yeah, just thank you for tuning into the video. If you liked this, just let me know. Shoot me a like if you want. For everyone who's followed me already, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And for any people who are interested in subscribing, I will be making this content more often, and I'm always open to ideas. So just please leave a comment and just let me know below. Thanks for tuning in, and I hope you guys have a great day. Bye.